guys, we're going to jump right into our panel this morning. We have three phenomenal listing agents. I think this is our 6th or 7th installment of this now. And I think every single time we just get more and more out of it. If you have questions, I encourage you to throw them in the chat section and I'll throw our panelists as they come in. Otherwise, we're going to just kick it off and get rocking and rolling here. So I'm going to start off my first question here with over to Martha. When we're looking at leads, what lead generation methods are you going to double down on over the next year, and what's working well for you to find sellers in this market?
Yeah, so I've been in the industry for a number of years, and this is the last couple of years have been like no other, especially the market we've come off of and are moving or shifting into. So some of the tools and strategies that we've used in the past, may not be the right approach this time around. We do know that we're heading into fall market, which is, to some of you that may not know, another little boost of inventory and activity, sort of like spring market, but not quite as energized. So just, cyclically, we've always seen that things take off a little bit after Labor Day. So that's what we're preparing for. And we're seeing some of that activity happening, in the last, for sure, 48 hours for our team. So to answer your question, I guess, some of the things that I'm really focusing on now, my big focus in years past has always been hosting open houses. I could really rock those, and I generated a lot of new leads from those. But I've come to find out, and we learned through the model that really your best lead gen tool is to work your database. Go back to your past clients. And I've got enough clients that have owned their homes for 5+ years. So now it's time, to really work on those people that might be considering, move up or down or what have you, or job change or whatever. So that is my big focus right now. I've never really put that into full motion, but that is my one thing, especially with that pizza night next week. I'm using that to my full advantage. And
Love
one
that.
thing that
Thank you. So what I'm definitely hearing from Martha here is some things that aren't working for her that used to work in the past, like open houses, she's moving away from and doubling down on focusing on the people in her sphere. So that's great. DaMara Bolton can people hear me? Am I frozen?
Nope, I can hear you.
Okay, good. Sorry about that. I'm going to move over to DaMara and ask her the same question. DaMara Bolton, you guys, is coming to us from the Lake Country office. I was just telling her before you guys all hopped on. Business is up 33% this year over last. With this shift in the market and all this stuff we're seeing, she's been able to really double down here on her listings. Kathleen said the day she asked her to be on this panel, she signed 3 listings that day. So DaMara, tell us, what lead gen methods are you doubling down on over this next year, and what's working well for you to find your sellers?
Yeah. And I'm going to echo a lot of what Martha had said. Honestly, most of my business comes from either past clients or referrals from them. And I think in whatever market we're in, that's really important, but especially now that we're shifting, loving on your clients as much as possible is what's going to keep bringing in referrals for you. I have really taken advantage of that neighborhood smart plan in Command, to be specific. I have found that, especially with what's going on in the media and the news and what our clients and future clients are reading and hearing about what's going on, that they want true information. And that neighborhood smart plan is a really good way to just be really specific about their market that they're in, so they can keep a tab on what's selling, what's not selling, what the average price point is. So I actually started putting that into play excuse me, more closer to May, when I saw things like really start to slow down. And I have gotten clients reaching out to me being like, okay, hey, I see this is going on. We have been thinking that maybe the fall is the time for us to start making a move. Do you recommend that we list now and rent? Like, what's kind of the plan? So people that maybe wouldn't have reached out to me for 6 months, I was able to kind of get them in my funnel right away by just having something very passive, not spammy, good information for them. I utilize a program called HomeBot. And if you have a lender, it's actually partnered with through one of your lenders. And it's a very similar way to keep them updated on the value of their house. It's just more specific. It's kind of like a drip campaign with the CMA of their house. But it also gives them market trends in their zip code, and it's bi-monthly. So they're getting 3 touch points each month on their house value. You can also set people up as possible buyers. So some of those folks that were thinking about being the move up buyer, I can put them on their preferred zip code so they can watch kind of the trends there. And just in the last couple weeks, because there's like a dashboard, you can go and actually view their activities. Just in the past couple weeks, I can kind of watch some clients that maybe I haven't talked to in a few months, not really close with them as friends, and I can see that they're clicking on things consistency. So that's like a cue to me in real data to go watch them and connect with them and start having more conversations. Also keeping them informed about the rates, because that's their second concern, is the interest rates, if they have a good rate right now. Offering more CMAs directly to clients that maybe aren't so tech savvy, stopping by, bringing them, a little pop-by gift and being like, hey, I have, some market information for you. And I'm actually going to be doubling down right now on client events. I just scheduled one for the end of October to do a not a brand photo shoot, a family photo shoot. I'm calling it the Fur Friends and the Family. So my clients that have dogs, because I have a lot of like single clients with like a dog, and then I have a lot of like younger, boyfriend, girlfriend situations. So I'm actually having one of my clients take the photos because she's a photographer, and we're going to go out to a park and just have some apple cider, some donuts, and then everybody gets kind of their Christmas photos taken. So things like that, I think are definitely important, just staying in front of your clients and making sure that you're kind of the number one person in their mind when things are shifting. And you're the number one person for that information and data, not Google.
Fantastic. Lots of new stuff, you guys. I'm hearing lots of different ideas. Everything that I'm hearing is very much you're coming from a place of value, right? And she's utilizing the tech. She's utilizing her vendor partners to provide value up front. That's fantastic. A lot of stuff I haven't heard before. So excellent work. Betsy, how about yourself? What are some lead gen methods that you're doubling down on?
I just want to tell you one thing. Regarding the smart plans, I'm with DaMara on that. I was reached out by one of our not past clients, but somebody I've been working on for a while, well over a year, and they received the neighborhood nurture yesterday and reached out to me for a listing appointment. So it works. Awesome. It takes time to get it set up, but you guys use what's there.
Yeah, I just put Lindsay's email in the chat. If you guys aren't leveraging smart plans or you don't know how to set them up, reach out to Lindsay, set a one-on-one. She'll get them in place for you. I'm happy those are working for you guys and that you're utilizing that easy button pretty much that runs itself. So thanks, Martha. Betsy, how about yourself? Anything these ladies didn't hit on?
All of the things they said. In addition, I'm a little less like what you would typically think of as lead gen. I try to make it a little more authentic, organic. So more so having like more intentional social interactions and like going to like saying yes when I get invited places, knowing that there's always going to be somebody who's going to ask me about real estate anywhere that I go. I also formerly owned a fitness studio, but I continue teaching there a couple times a week. And I've gotten tons of clients from that, because every time I go to teach, they're always asking me like, oh, what's going on in the market? Like, yeah, we're thinking about listing, or we're thinking about starting to look. So that's been a really good source of clients for me. And then just social media. I get a ton of outreach on social media and have gotten a few listings and buyers just by posting something that I see on a showing that's interesting. Or if I'm in a neighborhood where somebody's starting to think about looking, or they'll see something cool and be like, oh, how much is that house? It's right next to my house. Maybe we should think about selling our house. Yes, you should now. Another thing that I do, I'm like very involved in my community, and I've like taken a leadership position in one of the organizations in my community, so that I'm always like, when people think of me, they know that I'm a realtor and top of mind, because I know that, you know, everybody knows realtors, but I want to be their first one that they think of. Other than that, like a more traditional thing that I've done is sent out the like just sold postcards. And I've actually gotten 2 listings from sending those. So I would like send out just sold, like here was the list price, here's what it sold at. It was on the market for a day. We had 20 some offers or whatever. And then I get their neighbors calling me.
Amazing. Fantastic. Thank you so much. All right, guys, we're going to talk about the 2 swear words in the market right now, low inventory. We've been seeing low inventory in the market for a while. How has your lead generation changed over the last year based on that low inventory, Martha?
Because of that low inventory, you know, it's really made me be hyper focused on how we're listing these properties to make sure that we're pricing them appropriately right out of the gate. And what's really important for agents to understand right now, and it's always this way in the fall market, when you're comping a property, you want to comp it for the last year of inventory, not the last 6 months, because many of those sellers are expecting to list their property at where things sold this last spring. You don't want to do that, because then you're going to end up with listings that are overpriced and are just going to sit there. So the right way to do it is to go back for a year of inventory and price it that way. You want to price it in order to draw the buyers in, and so they feel it's priced appropriately, and then that's what's going to drive multiple offers.
Beautiful. Thank you. How about yourself, DaMara? How are you handling the low inventory in this market when it comes to selling homes and getting more listings?
Yeah, I've become heavier on like the traditional farming ideal neighborhoods. And kind of actually to bump off of Betsy, I have gotten success with those just sold postcards as well. And it's kind of a double-edged sword, because you send them out and you're like, look at, I got this.
Like, I don't want to.
Right. You don't want to tell them that there were 20 offers, but
yeah.
But you also have to send them because you did the work, and the market, you know, the market shifting isn't a reflection on you. I always have to try to remember that. However, so I've kind of changed my marketing, and I'm like happy to send whatever postcards if anyone is interested. I have a template in Canva, but the short of it is the market is shifting. Who you hire matters. Putting a sign in the yard and photos on MLS isn't going to get your house sold. And then I list like all of the things that I do that make me unique. And then I've started sending out letters with like client testimonials as well, from their neighbors. So it's more of like, hey, trust me, I'll get your house sold. More than just like the data in their face now, which is important, so that there's a level expectation of that pricing when I go there and say, I know your neighbor's house sold 50,000 over 3 months ago, but it's not the market we're in anymore. And also I do a lot of social media, and I love the word you use, Betsy, for being authentic. So I hired a virtual assistant to help me manage some of that. I still am like the person on there, and I post my things, and I make sure I show up in my stories and do funny reels and things like that. And that, interestingly enough, has gotten me just as much business as client referrals, that people they feel like they know me already through social. And they know that I'm being truthful, and I'm bringing them data as well. And education on the market too, because again, everybody's wondering what's going on.
Excellent. You're educating your sellers. They're looking for you for that education. So you're not afraid to give it to them. I love that. How about you, Betsy? Anything that you can add to that on how you're handling the low inventory in the market with your lead generation for listings?
I would say pretty much just the same as they did, and just really amplifying my presence and really amping up the networking. that I would normally be doing, but really being more intentional about it.
And so Betsy, as we're shifting, what advice are you giving your sellers in regards to pricing, repairs and updates, staging? Is that stuff as important as it used to be, or how are you handling those conversations?
So like in my opinion, no matter what market you're in, you always want to have done the prep, you know, you want to have the repairs done. If they're open to having a pre-listing inspection, you want to do that. If they have a foosball table in their dining room, you want to stage it. So I think like really like regardless of the market, you want to do everything that you can to present your house in the best possible way, and knowing that, like, as they say, you can only make one first impression. So making that first impression the best. And then as far
Martha,
as,
what is that conversation? Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Betsy.
I was just gonna say, as far as pricing, like what DaMara said, level setting and saying that like the market from June, like we got an accepted offer in June and had a flood of offers. Your house might be like almost identical to that house, but you're not going to see that. Like the sense of urgency among buyers is definitely lower than it has been. I mean, I've only been in this for a little over a year, but I've seen the shift. It's been pretty dramatic. So just trying to level set with them and make sure that they know what we're dealing with, because everybody's heard the stories of a million offers. We're going to get 50,000 over ask. But I think still also telling sellers that by pricing competitively, we mean that like even buyers now that have been looking for 3 months, like they're still conditioned to think that like, here's the list price, I'm going to pay over the list price if I'm going to get this house, like if it's priced properly, not like I'm going to go under list price. And like explaining that that's the mentality that buyers have. I believe that buyers still have, at least my buyers still have. I don't know if the other two have anything different to say about that, but and like convincing your sellers that that's where you should be.
Martha or DaMara, anything you want to add to that at all?
You know what, Betsy, one comment, which is really interesting of what you're saying, because we're seeing this shift in the market. It's a whole new education that we have to have both with our buyer and our seller. You know, it's kind of going back to the old school, the normal market of just because a property is listed at $500,000, these buyers that are out there right now, it's in their mindset that that's where offers are beginning, right? And then it's going to sell way over that. So they're a little gun shy to go look if they can only afford up to 500. So I've shifted my conversations back with my buyers to say, okay, it's listed at 500 and that's your peak. Let's go look at it anyway. Even if you can only afford up to 475, we should still go take a look at it if it's been on the market a little bit, right?
Yeah, if it's been on the market.
Yeah.
Even for a week, they don't have offers. That means that, you know, there could be some negotiating going on. So one of the things that I've been doing with a couple of my sellers is there's some tools in showing time that you should play around with. A couple of reports. One can show you, you can set up a search for other inventory within your parameters, and you can set up the timeline of how many showings have other properties had within, you know, the last 30 days. And you can actually see how many showings those comps have had and what agents showed it. So you can turn around and reach out to those other agents to see if their buyers, you know, you might be able to get to come and take a look at your listing. So there's lots of different ways that you can, you know, be using some of these services that we've got, which is pretty neat.
I'll just, I guess, add a little bit with the staging. I definitely am by the mindset that no matter what market we are in, that repairs and the aesthetics and the staging really matters. And I know back last spring and this spring, I got some pushback with sellers saying, well, but we don't really need to do that because my property is going to sell anyway. And I always had to say, well, it might be the difference between 2 offers or 20 offers. And that's going to be a price point and a term discussion that, maybe you're going to have no appraisal. Maybe you're going to get cash offer. You just don't know by presenting your property correct. And the same thing kind of applies now is, do you want your property to be on the market for 2 weeks or 1 weekend? And that's also where the pricing discussion comes into, is sellers are very eager to just push it right now and setting that expectation with them on, if you're not going to paint that terrible lime green wall, that how that's going to show in the photos. And you may not even realize that a buyer can't see past that in a photo. And while there's lots of good agents out there, there's agents that'll not push it for their clients and aren't able to see the vision for them either. And you're relying on, somebody else to get somebody in your property, where I'm here telling you what it's going to take to make sure that we can get the most eyes on your property. So
I have to agree with DaMara on that. Even though we're in a shifting market, it's even more critical to present your properties correctly. We're still encouraging our sellers to do pre-sale home inspections. We're still encouraging our clients to go through and declutter. And sometimes it can take 3 weeks to a month for a seller to get their house ready, staged, picture perfect. So, there's a lot of heavy lifting in getting some of these listings on the market, especially if it's somebody downsizing. And, patience as a listing agent is key when you're dealing with an emotional move like that.
I agree.
I think one theme I'm really hearing from these 3 women is they're not afraid to tell their sellers what their sellers don't want to hear in fear of losing the listing. You really have to be able to inform them and educate them, because the market is moving so fast. And like all 3 of them said, what you saw 3 months ago isn't the market that we're in now. And they don't know that. They're not in the meetings we're in. They're not watching the market like you guys are watching the market. And I think when you speak to that, it shows your credentials. It shows why they should be hiring you, because you understand it more than anyone. And this is why they need to do X, Y, or Z, instead of keeping their mouth shut because they're afraid they won't get the listing if they don't just agree with their seller. So kudos to all 3 of you and being comfortable having those tough conversations and earning the respect from your seller to walk them through, this big transaction. We're going to switch gears a little bit. We're going to talk about objections, right? So you're not walking in like you used to and just, getting these listings. You're having objections. What sort of objections are you hearing from your sellers, and how are you overcoming them? And I'll go ahead and start with you, Betsy, because we've been going to you last and everyone's been taking all your answers. So.
I think we kind of already covered it as far as like pricing objections. So with pricing, I'm giving them kind of my recommended range. And then, if they want to be at the top, then I try to have a conversation with them about like what the implications are of being at the top. Like, okay, that's where you want to be. Then are you okay sitting longer, waiting till you get that offer? Or do you want to be like lower and get more offers, turn around quicker, more exposure, like kind of trying to get them to understand like what the implications are of the different pricing. I don't know, objections otherwise, I guess on comp, commission. So like, I think a lot of people still think that like 6% is just standard, and I don't get objections on that. I have gotten a couple saying, like, I know such and such agency does it for 5, or like there's this flat fee that does it for 4. And I say, yes, but like I'm a full service agent, we're a full service brokerage, and then kind of list out everything that you're getting with a full service agent, and explaining that they're going to end up actually making more money by using me than using like one of the discount brokerages. And like, we work our asses off, so we're worth it.
Love it. DaMara, how about objections for you? What objections are you hearing in this market and how are you overcoming them?
Yeah, so I guess just bumping off of the commission discussion, typically see more commission objections in the spring. And I tend to think it's because the market's hot and everything's selling, and well, we'll just call, our friend over at, we all know where. And I have really gotten solid on my value in the last, I'll say 18 months. And I have like a presentation that I bring that very closely mimics that postcard that I mentioned of like, what am I doing? And I always challenge my sellers to interview somebody else. I have only once ever lost a listing that way. I'm not, and again, like I'll say that, I'm sure it'll happen more times, but I truly believe that like our ideal clients are the ones that are going to work with us, and the ones that won't, we just didn't know it, but that's a headache you didn't want. So that being said, I bring also data as well on, if I kind of have a sense that I'm going to get some pushback with the commission, I will bring data on what my average days on market is, what the list to sale ratio is, and what that is with another brokerage as well, that you can kind of show them the proof is in the pudding. While I can't guarantee you what your house is going to sell for because I can't predict the future, I can show you what the trends are and where I've worked. And usually that's enough. I also am just gotten really firm with saying no. And that's taken a long time to get there, because I love to help people, and you just never know when the next person's going to come, but just saying no, sometimes they respect that.
What
and
are some things you're saying no to? Are you saying no to actually taking the listing, or just certain price requests, or what are you telling them no on?
Yeah, so I have a listing right now that hasn't closed yet, and it was kind of my last lesson of, I need to say no to sellers when they want to price their listing way too high, and actually say no to the listing. I did not, for other reasons. But as far as like pricing goes, I've gotten better at saying no, and I've gotten better at suggesting why a different price needs to happen. So say like they want to list something at 500. And yeah, there's one comparable at 500, but it's got a brand new kitchen and these people do not. I try to put that in a number that, if you want to list it at 500, we can definitely do that, but that's going to require we do these things. And then they quickly see that, okay, yeah, that kitchen is $50,000 more. We shouldn't expect that in a price unless we want to put 50,000. And obviously that's not worth it, and nobody's going to do that. But as far as with the commission, just saying no, because sometimes they'll just ask and they just want to ask. And sometimes it's just because everyone's looking for a deal. I get it. But I also use the line of, hey, I'm not going to let you be taken advantage of, and I'm going to protect, what I work for as well, and what the buyer's agent you haven't met yet is working for. And we're not going to, cut off their salary or their commission that way. So, yeah, I'm trying to think. One of the other things, objections kind of on the backwards end, is fear of the market bottoming out, and getting objections of, people that would be move up buyers, having that discussion with them that it still is a great time to sell. I'm still having properties get multiple offers when my advice is listened to. And obviously you can't predict the future. I've had it before where you do all the things and then the listing sits and you really don't know why. But fear of the market, and kind of combating some of that with data, but also giving them up-to-date market trends and getting them ready that, if they're going to list their property a month from now, it's going to be in a completely different place. I can tell you where it's going and how it sits, but trying to just, I guess, be their partner and their confidant with that, but also making sure that they have the right data to make the decision that's best for them. And that usually overcomes any of that. So.
Beautiful. Thank you, Martha. Talk objections with me. What objections are you hearing? How are you overcoming them? What are you seeing?
So as far as objections go, we start to hear a little bit of seller thinking that springtime is the best time to sell. So that's, you hear that a lot in the fall market. And one thing that we always say is buyers right now are buying because they have to. Spring market is a lot of, looky-loos and people that don't necessarily have to buy. So the real buyers are the buyers that are in the fall market. A couple of things that I will say is when it comes to objection handling is this is the time of year that we always have bold, and this is exactly why. You want to go to bold because you learn these objection handlers, you learn the scripts, and before you know it, it rolls off your tongue. Every single objection is always repetitive from any kind of a seller. And if you know those scripts, it rolls off your tongue like nobody's business between commission, price objections. And the other thing is, you never want to price too high, going back to what the other ladies were saying, because then you're over promising and under delivering, and you've got a mad seller on your hands. You told me that we could list at this price, to just try and buy the listing. You never want to buy a listing. You want to price it according to your comps and maybe just still a little tad below. You want to show your value, before you're going to go on a listing appointment, you want to make sure that you sort of have a grasp of what are you walking into? Why are they selling? And those might be questions that you ask before you even show up at the house, so that okay, what value can I provide to this seller? Is this somebody downsizing? Okay, great. Then I'm going to come with my tool belt that's going to say, all right, I've got all of these other contractors that I can leverage to help you downsize and make this as seamless as possible so that they're not stressed out. An organizer, somebody to help them make their transition to their next move as far as, organizing, decluttering, all of that sort of thing. If it's somebody, that's selling for a different reason, they're buying up. You're thinking about that too. You're thinking, okay, I'm going to bring a list of, I can refer you to a decorator or a contractor or whatever you might need as you're expanding to a bigger house. You always prepare for your listing appointments so that you've got the right information to provide. The other thing that we're facing on some of these listing appointments too is, this interest rate scare, and the world's going to end and interest rates are so, high when really they're not, they're normal. And I do like the idea of, presenting to a seller, this is what it looks like to buy right now with this interest rate. And this is what it looked like back when rates were 10.5% historically, and even when they were even at 7.5%. So, we're not going to see 2.75 again. So even telling your seller that you'll have that type of materials at your open houses to provide to first-time home buyers. You just have to explain all of those things so they know they're hiring the right agent.
Beautiful. Thank you, Martha. I think too, what I love that James Shaw said is, when you get an objection, it's because they're getting closer to a yes. They're asking follow-up questions because they're getting there. So be motivated by objections and handle them as they come. And I love what Martha said too. She kind of glassed over it, but if you know their reason for selling and you can continue to go back to the why that they're meeting with you in the first place, that's really the reason to keep them focused on the importance of why they're selling. Is it to downsize, or is it that they need the capital gains on it, or what is it? And being able to go back to that is always going to be your strongest objection handler. So thank you, ladies, so much for your time. We're going to finish up with one question. And that question is simply, what question did I not ask that you wish I did, that you really want people to hear from you on this? And then we'll close it out and protect everyone's time here. So Betsy, what's one thing that I didn't ask that you really want people to hear, having been in this business a year and just totally crushing it here? Half her business is listings. What do people need to know? You're muted, Betsy. It's top secret.
I think it's a question that was not necessarily asked, but answered. And what DaMara said is like being okay saying no. Something that I've learned is that I would rather not have had the listing than have gotten the listing and had not the result that the seller wants, or lose the listing. So I think having it's hard when you're in it and like you just want the listing. So it's hard to like see, like look forward. But to try to have that foresight to like be okay saying no.
Beautiful. Thank you. How about you, DaMara?
I guess more of a comment than a question, kind of along those lines, but remembering, I guess a lot of what Martha just said too, or remembering that what our clients are going through and being cognizant of their situation. And sometimes we're so business focused and we want to do right by our clients, but sometimes we just need to slow down and spend the time with them as a friend. I've always made it my motto, friend first, realtor second. And I tell all of my clients that, like this week, my seller had a bad inspection. I went over there with some Starbucks and I just sat with her and we talked about it. And I reminded her of all the good things that have happened. They found their dream home. It took 2 years, but we did it.
Mhm.
We got a buyer who really loves your house. We got through appraisal. We can handle this. And not making light of the situation, but, just kind of being that human person and trying to build them back up, and just spending the time with them. So yeah, loving on our clients that way.
I love
directly.
that. Love it. Thank you. Martha.
One super important thing is going back to reading your client, whether it's a buyer or a seller, is understand how they want to be communicated with. It's so easy to shoot a text. That doesn't work with the elderly set, right? So you just have to be prepared for a lot of phone calls. And that's a question that you ask at the beginning of your relationship. How would you like to be communicated with? And on our team, we have a form for that. So our admin understand that too. If it's somebody that's not tech savvy at all or able to jump on email, they need to understand that that's going to take phone calls on their part. Yeah, it's really easy to shoot out emails and go down your checklist, but sometimes that doesn't work. And even tech savvy people might prefer a phone call, might prefer the interfacing, might even require a few more face-to-face meetings. So that's where our customer service comes into play. And again, mirror and match, understanding what they're going through. I can't stress enough on that. And I can honestly tell you, that's been the secret to my team's success. Maureen and I have always been, huge on the customer service personal front.
Fantastic. Thank you guys so much. Are you filling a function? Or are you creating an experience? And it sounds like all three of you are creating experiences for your clients and at a very high level. So can't thank you enough for sharing your time. As many of these as we've done, I get something more and more out of it every time. I had heard things on here I have not heard on any of these panels. So thank you so much for bringing your experience to this group. And thank you guys all for jumping on. I hope you all got as much out of it as I did, and everybody enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Have a good long weekend.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.